Three, two, one. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew Smith. My name is Matthew Smith. I am the Director of Public Programs at Miami University's regional campuses at Hamilton and Middletown, Ohio. And today is my special pleasure to be joined by another distinguished Ohioan, Kari Gunter-Seymour, who is actually the Poet Laureate of Ohio. And Kari actually has put together, she's edited a volume of poetry. These are voices of Ohio poets of Appalachian heritage or Appalachian connections. The book is entitled, and correct me if I get this wrong, I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, and it has a beautiful cover illustration. And I believe, Kari, you're an artist as well. Is that correct? Visual artist.
Yes, I am. I'm actually a fine art photographer.
And did you do the cover art for the book, or was that someone else?
I enlisted the help of someone else, Keith Wild, who is local to me here in Athens County. He wasn't born in Athens County, but he's lived here a great long time, and he's an amazing artist. I'm going to hold up that cover again.
Yeah, if you could just hold that out for a second.
Yeah. And he and I worked on this together, but this is really his brainchild, his beauty. I said, I want the bird bigger, I want different colors, that kind of thing. But Keith Wild is the person who took up the inspiration for this based on the art direction that I gave him, and I'm so grateful for that because I just think it's beautiful.
It is a really stunning looking book, as well as a great book. And you're going to bring, I believe, a group of poets on the 6th of October, which is a Thursday at 7 p.m. We're going to be at the Hamilton campus of Miami University in Hamilton, Ohio. So I will certainly be putting out information into the public domain about that. But a lot of these poems, again, they're connecting Ohio, Appalachia. And I guess it's fair to say there's a sort of biographical element to a lot of these poets or poems. There's that kind of connecting theme of biography. So what I thought we'd do today is I'm just going to ask you a few questions about yourself just to lead into our event. So again, my name is Matthew Smith. I'm speaking with Kari Gunter-Seymour. And Kari, where were you born?
So I was actually born in Warren, Ohio, because my mom and daddy met after the war. So shortly after I was born, though, we came back to Athens County, which is where my mom's people were from. So I was raised in Athens County, and I'm a third generation Athens County, and proud to say.
So what was it like growing up in Athens County?
Oh my goodness, it was wonderful. I mean, literally, I lived during a time when there was absolutely no worry.
Yeah, yes. I think I'm gonna, oh, sorry, go on.
It's good? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in a time when it was very safe and very, everybody knew everybody. I lived in a small village, Amesville, Ohio, and literally every family knew every other family. And I'd leave in the morning and sometimes didn't come back till evening for supper, because lots of times, wherever house you were, that mother fed everybody for lunch, And we played in the creek. Oh my gosh, we'd be in the creek all summer long. We'd take big old hikes just around everywhere. Every day was an adventure. I mean, we were never inside the house during the spring, summer, or fall, and we did our best to be outside all winter as well. Our favorite time in the winter, of course, was the snow day when there was no school, and we'd be outside all day on those days with bread sacks tied around our feet to keep our boots from getting too wet and freezing our feet. We would tie bread sacks around them.
That sounds lovely. I mean, it sounds, especially the last 2 years, I think of, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and, everything now is cell phones and just a very natural kind of childhood from the sound of it. Now, did you read much when you were growing up as well, or was it mostly outdoor adventures?
That's a good question, because I would say it was mostly outdoor adventures until about, I think it was maybe 6th grade. And I discovered Nancy Drew.
Oh, yeah.
And after Nancy, the Hardy Boys, And so that was the start of it. And then, of course, high school, I went into Alan Eckert and more of the Ohio-based authors that I could learn more about, Ohio and what was happening here and why. And of course, then it went crazy after that. And
So
if you want to ask who my first poet was, I always say Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan.
I always say Bob Dylan. I'm sorry, but it's true.
That's wonderful. I apologize. Earlier, I just got a bit thrown by the technology. I'm not used to talking on screen, so I apologize for that. Now, again, the connection here with Appalachia. When did you become aware of becoming or being Appalachian?
That's such a good question, and I'm going to give you a long answer. I'm sorry, but
that's good.
I I always knew I was different. I didn't quite fit in, and I think the evidence of that was I was not in a certain group of people at school. I might be kind of in several different groups. Not that I was popular, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that, I fit in with the shy kids. I fit in with the loud kids. I fit in with the National Honor Society kids. I fit in, but I didn't have a group that I belonged to. And I was well aware of that. And I thought part of it might be because I was overweight. And I thought, well, people are pretty judgmental about overweight. So maybe that's part of it. And then I kind of, at that time, talked like this, had a little bit of twang in my voice. And I will say right here, I worked years and years to get rid of that. And it's only been in the last handful of years that I said, heck with that, I'm going to talk the way I talk. So as I became an adult, and this wasn't until 2009 or 10, I think it was, I started really seriously writing poetry in 2009. And I think it was 2010 or between 10 and 12 that I started attending workshops, for poetry, and still felt weird. Like, I know I'm a poet, but it's just not, people were not quite understanding what I was trying to do and appreciated my work. But, so when it really turned the corner for me is when I stopped attending the Northern poetry workshops and started attending the Southern poetry workshops. That's when I went, duh, I'm Appalachian. I'm Appalachian. That's what it is. Those are my people. And I should have known that because all my grandparents were Appalachian. I'm a 9th generation Appalachian. I can trace my daddy's people back to Berkshire, England, when they got on the boat. And they settled in Virginia, Henrico County, Virginia, which is near Richmond. My mama's people, I can trace back 8 generations, and they also ended up in Virginia and then into West Virginia, of course, because it became West Virginia, And so I guess I should have known, but and I had definitely been teased, hillbilly and all that, but I never really associated that with the way I thought or the way I wrote. But it is hugely impactful in the way I think and the way I write, because I so depend on my heritage and I depend on my culture and all of my people, the generations of people. I often write about the strong women in my family because I've done research and found out so much about them. And I certainly know where all my sass comes from. I come by it natural. And so that's kind of how I discovered who I was, is by getting among my people. And Pauletta Hansel is a very good example of that. Pauletta I met her at my very first time at Heinemann Settlement School, the weekly writers workshop. And what a gift that was to have met her right off the bat, and was in a workshop with her, and just so impactful and so enlightening as to who I was as a human being and who I wanted to be as a writer / poet.
And Pauletta Hansel, for those who don't know, is the first Cincinnati Poet Laureate. And she's also involved in the Cardinal Sings Poetry Anthology. Is that's correct?
Absolutely. Couldn't have done it without her work in there.
So I think you've answered this a little bit already, but what does the word Appalachian specifically mean to you?
Well, of course, it's a category of people. The census up until I think it was the 1930s defined Appalachian as white hill people, completely excluding those of color, our indigenous, our Afro-Latin, our Asian Appalachian. Just completely removing them. It was all just white hill people. And when they said hill people, they meant that as a dig. They meant undereducated, overfed, just slovenly, people that they just didn't know what to do with. So today, when I think of Appalachian, I think of innovative. I think of people who love the land and each other and are struggling but determined to hold on to the culture that we value so highly, and those ways that have worked for generations upon generations in natural ways, not man-made ways. I myself have lost so much that my grandmother taught me, and I'm sometimes even retrieving some of those in dreams and desperately trying to pass them on to my son and my granddaughter and my grandson, because they're so important. Just looking at the signs around us and knowing what's going on, when it's time to plant, and when to plant what goes under the ground at what time, and what you plant on top of the ground. And the same with the harvests, which plants to stay away from and which plants to embrace. All those things that are just so important and have been set aside because we're so hustle bustle here in America. So that's what Appalachian means to me.
That's a wonderful.
Especially, oh, I'm sorry, I just have to say, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I completely forgot to say community, because that is forefront. Community, the land, culture, heritage, that's Appalachian. And almost number one, tied for number one, is community and the land. And then on top of all of that is honor, because we believe in honor. And you can count on us when we give you our word, we give you our word, and we don't step back from it.
that's great. So it's kind of a value system as well as a way of life. Yeah. So next question, that was a great answer, but the next question is a little bit different. So what poets do you most admire? And that could be anyone. It could be Appalachian, any background, living or dead. But what poets inspire you, if that's a fair question to ask?
It is. And, I always go to James Wright first, because after Bob Dylan, James Wright was my next poet. His work to me is just so amazing. His economy of words, his line breaks. I mean, just amazing poetry, and accessible yet academic in so many ways. I mean, I think it ticks off so many boxes for people. He's just amazing. Outside of Appalachia, Ellen Bass, I value her work highly. Ross Gay is one of my very favorites. I love Rebecca Gale Howe is another Appalachian poet that I value. And there are a slew in this volume of amazing poets that I value highly, Roy Bentley being one of those, who I think is an absolute treasure. And even though he's written many books and won tons of awards, he's still waiting to be truly discovered by, the broad America. And I really hope that happens for him soon, because he's just amazing. So that's a handful of poets right there that I just love. I could go on and on, but I know we don't have that kind of time.
Oh, well, maybe we can, we can have a little bit of Q&A at our event on October 6th. So maybe some folks listening to this interview might want to ask a follow-up question, but I will leave that to them. So you are Ohio's Poet Laureate. Again, maybe for our audience, what does that job actually involve? What does it mean to be the Poet Laureate of the Buckeye State?
Well, this is my second tour, as they say. I was reappointed. The first tour was this. I sat in this chair in this room, and I went all over Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Illinois. I went into the Carolinas. I did over 150 events within 18 months time, because we were in lockdown or pretty much scared to go out of our homes that whole time pretty much. And most of us were still not leaving without masking up and special clothing and things like that. So it meant that I had the opportunity to go into people's homes and maybe bring a little bit of comfort with poetry. I also got to do workshops with incarcerated teens and adults that are in recovery and folks in recovery housing. And that's my thing. As Poet Laureate, my focus is on addiction, and I like to talk about it every time I get the chance, because we're not having that conversation in this country, not to the level that it needs to be. And so many people still think that people are addicted because they're lazy, no good, and don't want to try, and that is the furthest from the truth it could possibly be. And, you know, we need to keep educating the public, and we need to keep sending out the love to those who are struggling and are in recovery. And we need to praise and honor those who are in recovery, because every single day they're fighting that good fight. You know, I can barely stop from overeating. And here are so many good folks who are avoiding the one thing that can make them absolutely crazy, but they want so badly. And I just have the highest regard and honor them to the highest amount for their good, hard work. And so that's a large part of how I started out my Poet Laureateship. And then I got this amazing grant for $50,000. I'm sorry, I keep holding up this book, but to do this book, you know, to create this beautiful book. And so the last year, literally the last year, has been wrapped around, you know, recruiting and then processing all of the submissions. I received nearly 700 poems. That was whittled down to 183 poems. There are 134 poets in the book. I have done, of course, other things in between all of that. I've done a lot of workshops and readings, and that's, of course, part of the job. I do a lot of work with young people. I have a residency with the Wexner Center in Columbus, Ohio, the Fine Arts Center, and I worked with Central Ohio teens all last year, and I will work with them this year too, the school year, bringing poetry, song, writing, just opening them up to some other ideals and suggestions, and introducing them to Appalachia, because for many of them, it's either a culture they've never heard of, or it's part of their culture, and they've been afraid to say anything because people look down on Appalachians. And so that's my other torch that I carry, is that, you know, Appalachians are not who you think we are. You know, we are a thriving, educated, well-groomed society. Now catch us on a weekday, and we might have dirt under our fingernails, and we might be in our work clothes, but you catch us on Sunday morning getting ready to go to church or practice our spiritualism, and you'll see us looking completely different, but we're hard working people. And so it's a dual torch. I like to bring up addiction so that we can talk about it and see what it really is, and be realistic and helpful. And then also the idea of you know, who we are as Appalachians, who are Appalachians, and we're not who you think we are, and kind of tackle that stereotype and the racism that goes with that.
And so, I mean, it's really beyond just being a poet. It's a public service, being the Poet Laureate of Ohio.
Well, for me, it is. Those are the torches I took up, as I wanted to serve. You know, some people, and no judgment here, some people like to read, and they do. They as a Poet Laureate, they read and they spread their good word in that way. You know, so everybody does it differently, but this is how I am doing mine.
Well, Kari Gunter-Seymour, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you, and I'm very much looking forward to catching up again in October 6th. You'll be coming to the Hamilton campus. And just one last time, if you can hold up the book that we'll be reading from. I thought I heard a Cardinal sing, so you and a group of other wonderful Ohio poets will be at our campus. We'll also have some live musical accompaniment, so it'll be a great event. I'm looking forward to it. So, continue to do the great work that you do. And thanks again for taking time this morning to talk to me and to share your story with our audience.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Matthew. Thank you so much for having me in.
Thanks very much.